On the day I married Ethan Johnson, his first love from his youth suddenly appeared at the wedding, wearing a wedding dress. Tears streaming down her face, she cried out, "Ethan, you once promised you would marry no one but me for the rest of your life. Are you breaking your vow now?" Ethan's eyes turned red. He said, "As long as you're willing, the position of Mrs. Johnson is yours anytime." After he finished saying that, I immediately informed the system that I was willing to leave this world and take away all the rewards I had previously earned. I could give up being Mrs. Johnson, but everything Ethan had obtained through me, I would take it all back. I was inexplicably abandoned, right in the middle of the wedding. 20 minutes earlier, when Joanna Manning showed up at the wedding between Ethan Johnson and me, wearing a wedding dress, I was full of disbelief. Hadn't she retired from the entertainment industry 3 years ago, married and settled overseas? Why was she here now, wearing a wedding dress? But in the next moment, something even more shocking happened. Joanna's eyes filled with tears as she asked, "Ethan, you once promised that you would marry no one but me for the rest of your life. Are you going back on your word?" Ethan's face was full of disbelief, his body trembling uncontrollably from the surge of emotion. His voice was choked and broken, but every word was steady and firm. He said, "As long as you're willing, the position of Mrs. Johnson is yours anytime." I stood quietly behind them, watching the fierce and overflowing love between them, feeling it all absurd to the extreme. Ethan turned to look at me. "Leah Carter, I'm sorry, our wedding is canceled." After saying that, he took Joanna Manning's hand and quickly left the banquet hall. The wedding scene descended into chaos. The noise and gossip around me seemed to pierce my eardrums. I walked into the bridal lounge and called Ethan Johnson. After 2 rings, the call was answered. Almost hysterically, I shouted, "Ethan Johnson, what exactly do you mean by this?" His voice was calm, almost emotionless. "Leah, Joanna has come back." "So what?" I clenched my left hand so tightly that my nails dug into my palm. Ethan's voice was low and heavy. "Before Mr. Manning passed away, I promised him that I would take care of Joanna for the rest of her life. I'm sorry." I closed my eyes in pain, feeling utterly powerless. "Then what about the years we were together? What was I to you? A substitute?" There was a long silence, more than 10 seconds. When he finally spoke, there was a hint of guilt in his otherwise calm voice. "Leah, in the end, I wronged you, but I'll compensate you financially." Before Ethan could finish his sentence, I heard a woman's voice from the other end. "Ethan, Dad's body has arrived. Let's talk later. Let's get out of the car." "All right," Ethan replied, and with that, he hung up. I was so furious that my hands and feet went numb. My mind spun and I collapsed weakly onto the sofa. Host, Joanna Manning is the female lead who had disappeared for a long time. The system's voice suddenly rang in my mind. There has been a slight deviation in the storyline. The female lead returned earlier than expected. From now on, the emotional entanglements between the male lead, female lead, and the second male lead will continue. Your presence will no longer be needed. Congratulations, host. Your mission has been successfully completed. I sat there in a daze, unable to recover for a long time. Without warning, tears streamed down my face. I let out a bitter laugh. Yes, I had almost forgotten that I was merely a task performer for the system. 5 years ago, in my original world, I was diagnosed with ALS. When I was preparing to end my life early, the system found me and brought me into this world. Over the years, I had never thought about going back. After all, in my original world, ALS was a disease with no cure. I thought I would stay in this system world forever. Seeing my prolonged silence, the system sounded confused. "Host, aren't you happy? You once said that after completing the task, you would use your rewards to change Ethan Johnson's inevitable fate. Now, your wish can come true. Do you want to use all your rewards now?" The system's voice was filled with excitement. As my mind gradually cleared, I asked the system, "If I choose to return to my original world, what will happen?" The system paused for a while before reluctantly answering. "According to our agreement, we will restore your health, and you can take all the rewards you have earned with you." "Then," I said, "I choose to leave this world and take all my rewards with me." I answered directly, "I want to return to my original world." The system was a little shocked. It anxiously said, "Host, do you want to reconsider?" After all, you used to like Ethan Johnson so much. If you don't use your rewards to change his ending, he will die a tragic death. No need to reconsider, I refused firmly. His ending has nothing to do with me. The system went silent, but I could almost feel its anger as it furiously clattered away, operating something behind the scenes. In the end, its voice became perfunctory and indifferent. As requested by the host, the request has been submitted. You will leave this world 5 days from now. Please prepare accordingly. After finishing, it vanished with a swoosh. At that moment, the system's attitude felt strangely familiar, just like when I went to cancel services in my original world, and the staff behind the counter showed the same cold, disinterested manner. When I took off my wedding dress and threw it into the trash can, my chest still hurt so badly that I couldn't breathe. Even though Ethan Johnson had been my assigned target, my feelings for him were never fake. 5 years ago, when I first arrived in this world, Ethan's depression had manifested severely in his body. He often couldn't bear the physical pain and resorted to self-harm, even attempting suicide twice. One time, he overdosed on pills, causing serious liver and kidney damage. Another time, he slit his wrists, which damaged the nerves in his right hand, making it difficult for him even to hold a pen and write. He was this world's deeply devoted second male lead. If he had died prematurely, the storyline would have collapsed. My mission was to ensure he lived healthily. I appeared beside him as a friend, accompanying and caring for him, supervising his medication, and taking him to psychological therapy. To afford his medical expenses, I worked multiple jobs, handing out flyers, doing housekeeping, sorting packages in warehouses. Gradually, Ethan's condition started improving. The physical pain eased, and both his appetite and sleep quality returned to normal. I kept doing all this for 2 straight years. During that time, the system constantly reminded me that Ethan's favorability towards me was steadily increasing. I could feel it too, through his meticulous care and attentiveness, the way he checked in on me, the way his eyes always followed me. I wasn't made of wood. After sharing over 700 mornings and nights together, how could I possibly have no feelings for him? Eventually, we became lovers. In this world, we became each other's support system. I helped him start his own business, pulling him bit by bit out of the swamp of depression. I used my system rewards to heal the injuries left by his suicide attempts and helped care for his seriously ill mother. But no matter how sincerely I gave everything I had, it still couldn't compare to a few simple words from his first love. Just because of one sentence from Joanna Manning, Ethan could abandon me without hesitation in front of everyone at our wedding. Returning from the hotel to the villa, I looked at the festive decorations inside. The lively scenes from the wedding that morning still seemed fresh in my mind, but within just a few short hours, everything had changed. At some point, rain mixed with snow had started falling outside. I opened the balcony window and stared blankly at the view. The cold wind blew against my face, numbing my thoughts. As night began to fall, Ethan Johnson came back, with Joanna Manning closely following behind him. My face was expressionless as I turned to look at them. "I'm sorry, Leah," Joanna said sweetly, a bright smile lighting up her fair and delicate face. "Sorry to bother you so late." I had to admit, she really was beautiful. Her softly curled French waves fell elegantly over her chest. She wore a camel-colored cashmere coat over a dark tweed mini dress, radiating an indescribable charm and sophistication. I pressed my lips together, silently watching the two of them enveloped in an unmistakable air of intimacy, not uttering a word. Ethan stepped in front of me and lowered his voice. "Leah, Joanna just got back to the country and doesn't have a place to stay for now. Could you move out of this villa for the time being and let her live here?" My hands clenched into tight fists. I looked up and glanced around at the 3-story villa. There were 5 bedrooms here. This was the first property Ethan had bought after his startup success. I remembered how, in the beginning, we had rented a rundown place in the suburbs just to get by. Back then, the place we lived in was chaotic and full of all sorts of shady people. The clothes I hung on the balcony often ended up stained with strange marks, and my underwear would frequently go missing. I never felt safe. At that time, Ethan Johnson often promised me that once he had money, he would definitely buy me a big luxurious house. Later, When he really did become wealthy, he handed me the keys to this villa and told me, "Leah, from now on, this will be your home. A place that belongs to you alone." But now, he was asking me to leave it. Ethan seemed to have guessed what I was about to say, and he cut me off coldly. "You don't like living with strangers, right? Besides, Joanna was once a celebrity, a public figure. She needs privacy. It's inconvenient for you to stay here." The chill and anger in my heart were beyond words. I replied in a cold voice, "What if I refuse?" He was stunned for a moment, then his tone turned heavier. "Leah, you should understand clearly. This villa is legally under my name. You were merely staying here temporarily. If you refuse to move out, I won't hesitate to call the police. If they determine you're trespassing, it won't end well for you." I stared at his cold and arrogant expression, frozen in place. The memories of the past 5 years flashed through my mind like a hurricane. Ethan couldn't meet my gaze. He said awkwardly, "Moving out is only temporary. I'll help you find a new place as soon as possible. When everything settles down, you can move back." I took 2 deep breaths, suppressing the nausea and fury boiling in my chest, then turned and walked upstairs. "Leah," Ethan called from behind. I paused, my hand gripping the stair railing tightly. His voice was low and stern. "Don't make me repeat myself. I'm giving you 2 hours. Pack up everything and leave, otherwise." The threat in his words was unmistakable. "Don't worry, I will," I responded softly. An hour later, I had packed all my belongings. I even called the property management to arrange for a cleaning crew. Aside from my personal collection of crafts and 3 sets of clothes, I threw everything else away, including every gift Ethan had given me over the years. After all, besides the system rewards, I couldn't take anything from this world with me. When Ethan saw the cleaning crew stuffing my things into large black trash bags, his expression went blank for a moment. He hesitated and asked, "Are you really throwing all of this away?" I glanced at him indifferently and nodded casually. He clenched his jaw and scoffed coldly. "Leah, I suggest you calm down. There's no need to act so recklessly just to spite me. After all, once we break up, you might never afford these things again." I looked at him with a calm, detached expression. "Thanks for your concern, but I don't need it." After the cleaning crew finished clearing everything out, I pushed my suitcase toward the door. When I lowered my head, I caught a glimpse of the tiny diamond ring on my left ring finger. A sharp pain suddenly pierced my chest, dense and suffocating. That ring was a Valentine's Day gift Ethan had given me. The first one after we got together. He had saved up every penny to buy it. He once said that when we got married, he would replace it with a 10-carat pink diamond. Now I took the ring off. The years of love had left a faint, indelible mark on my finger, like the lingering imprint of our past, impossible to erase. I placed the ring on the nightstand. "The ring is yours," I said. Ethan's face changed drastically. His lips trembled for a second, but he quickly calmed himself, forcing a mocking smile. "Something that cheap, you could have just thrown it away." I gave him a disappointed look, took the ring into the bathroom, and flushed it down the toilet without hesitation. As I was pushing my suitcase down the stairs, Ethan suddenly spoke. "What are you planning to do now?" I lowered my gaze. "I'm going home." He paused, seemingly caught off guard. "You don't have any parents. What home do you have?" I gave a bitter smile. "Yeah, someone like me. What home could I possibly have? I once thought this place was my home. But even that was taken away from me." For a moment, guilt and embarrassment flashed across Ethan's face. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I can't let go of Manning." Ethan said, "I don't want to lie to myself, and even more, I don't want to lie to you. Don't worry, moving out is only temporary. Once I settle Manning in, you can come back and live here again. I promised you this house and I won't go back on my word." I didn't respond. I simply grabbed my suitcase and went downstairs. His so-called giving me a place to stay was nothing more than a sponsorship. As long as he needed it, he could kick me out at any time. Whether in this world or in my original world, a man's promises were never to be trusted. That night, I barely slept. I didn't know if it was because the hotel bed was too soft or because there were too many dreams haunting me. When I woke up the next morning, my whole body ached with stiffness. Half dazed, I turned on my phone, only to find the internet flooded with trending news about Ethan Johnson and Joanna Manning. It wasn't surprising. Ethan was now a hotshot in the business world, often going viral because of his looks. Joanna had been a well-known actress even before retiring. Especially with what happened yesterday, her appearing in a wedding dress at someone else's wedding to confess her love, the buzz was unprecedented. I casually clicked on one of the videos and scrolled through the comments section. Opinions were divided. Some praised them for bravely chasing love, admiring how they disregarded societal expectations, calling them role models for modern youth. But more people were outraged, saying they were shameless beyond belief. What did the bride do wrong to deserve being humiliated like that by those two crazy fools? Many wrote. My finger kept scrolling until I came across a video updated that morning, filmed inside a hospital room. The background caught my attention immediately. It was too familiar. That private VIP ward was where my stepmother had been hospitalized for nearly 3 months, and I had visited her almost every day. The bouquet on the table was the same one I had replaced just yesterday morning. In the video, my stepmother held Joanna Manning's hand lovingly, her face glowing with happiness. They were whispering to each other when a reporter asked, "Mrs. Johnson, have you known Miss Manning for a long time? You seem very close." My stepmother nodded kindly. Our family and the Mannings have been friends for generations. Manning and Arlanzo grew up together, childhood sweethearts. They even had a betrothal agreement when they were kids. The reporter pressed further. "What do you think about Mr. Ford Johnson suddenly calling off the wedding yesterday? After all, the bride was innocent in all of this. Did she come to you to make a scene?" My stepmother's expression visibly darkened, and an awkward tension filled the room. After a moment, she forced a smile at the camera and said, "I never agreed to Lonzo marrying that woman. Marriage isn't like making friends. It's about matching social statuses. How could the Johnson family ever accept a bastard whose biological parents are unknown?" The reporter was stunned by how blunt she was, speechless for a good 10 seconds. I was equally shocked, unable to react for a long time, as if seeing this woman for the first time. Just yesterday, she had held my hand and told me how happy she was about my marriage to Ethan, promising to treat me like her own daughter. The stark contrast made me wonder if she had been possessed by someone else overnight. 5 years ago, when the Johnson family's company went bankrupt, Ethan's father, overwhelmed by debt, committed suicide by jumping off a building. My stepmother had witnessed his body shattering on the ground. The extreme terror and grief triggered acute myocarditis, landing her in the ICU. Yet the debt collectors didn't leave them alone. While my stepmother lay in the hospital, unable to defend herself, they hunted down Ethan. They hung banners in front of his university, publicly labeling him as the son of a deadbeat. His friends rushed to distance themselves from him, terrified of being implicated. Joanna Manning was among those who abandoned him. After the Johnsons' bankruptcy, she used the excuse of being too busy with acting to slowly disappear from Ethan's life. It was during that period that Ethan fell into severe depression. A few months later, I was assigned by the system and appeared at his side. From that moment on, I worked tirelessly to care for him and his stepmother, with no time left for myself. I took on jobs to pay their medical bills, staying by Ethan's side during his darkest days. Over time, Ethan's condition improved, but my stepmother's illness only worsened, reaching a critical point where she now needed a heart transplant. During her 10 days of hospitalization, I was the one who took care of her day and night. 3 months ago, I even asked friends to help me search for a matching donor heart for her. My friend, who like me was a task performer from the same original world, was now the head of a major charity foundation in this world. He held access to valuable medical resources, including organ donation and transplantation networks. I had helped him complete a mission, and in return, he agreed to help me find a matching heart for my stepmother. 3 months was already the shortest time frame possible within his ability. And just yesterday, he had informed me that he had finally found a suitable donor. I exited the video app and immediately called him. "Chris, I just received terrible news," I said. "My fiance's mother passed away, so we won't be needing the heart anymore. Please allocate it to another patient who needs it." Chris sounded shocked. How could this happen so suddenly? The heart had just matched, and now she's gone. Life really is unpredictable. I'm sorry for your loss. Later that day, my friend Summer invited me out for a meal. Since I would be leaving this world soon, I wanted to say a proper goodbye, so I grabbed a gift and headed over. I didn't expect that just outside the restaurant, in the parking lot, I would run into Joanna Manning and Ethan Johnson. Talk about a narrow world. Joanna clung to Ethan's arm and greeted me warmly. Leah, what a coincidence. Even at such a remote restaurant, we still bumped into each other. Judging from her tone, she probably thought I was following them. I had no patience for pleasantries. I said coldly, I'm meeting a friend for dinner. Joanna quickly offered an awkward apology. Leah, I know you were a bit upset last night. I actually planned to stay at a hotel, but Lanzo wouldn't feel comfortable with me living outside alone, so, sorry for the inconvenience. I replied in an icy voice. No need to explain, that house was Ethan's to begin with. It's his freedom to give it to whomever he wants. After speaking, I turned toward the restaurant, but Joanna reached out to stop me. Oh, right. On the 28th, Lonzo and I are getting engaged. You'll come to the party, right? My gaze naturally dropped to her wrist, and then to the exquisite jade bracelet she was wearing. The texture was so fine, and the luster so pure and vibrant. It was a family heirloom from the Johnsons, something they had refused to sell even during their worst times. It had been passed down through generations, meant for the future daughter-in-law of the Johnson family. But my stepmother had never mentioned giving it to me. And yet, now it was on Joanna Manning's wrist, who had only returned yesterday. It turned out, I was never good enough. I looked at the two of them and smiled politely. Congratulations to you both. I'll definitely attend your engagement party. After dinner, Summer and I took a walk by the lake. He gently hooked his arm through mine, carefully asking, Leah, are you okay? I knew he was worried about my canceled wedding. I'm fine, I said. He hesitated before blurting out, didn't Joanna Manning retire from the entertainment industry 3 years ago after getting married? How come she's suddenly here trying to steal back your fiancé? I didn't know how to explain this absurd story to him. When I first arrived in this world, I had read through the plot in the system archives. In the original storyline, Joanna Manning returned to the country, angry, after discovering the male lead's flirtation with another woman. She was pregnant when she came back. Upon her return, she became entangled with the deeply devoted second male lead, Ethan Johnson. Later, the original male lead followed her back, and the three of them got caught in a complicated love triangle. In order to justify the male and female lead's final union, the plot dictated that Ethan would die trying to save Joanna, brutally hacked to death, his body left in pieces. But in the original storyline, all of this was supposed to happen a year later. I had thought that marrying Ethan might change everything. Even if it didn't, I was prepared to use my system rewards to rewrite his tragic fate. Clearly, I had been deluding myself. In front of the female lead, I wasn't even worth mentioning. But I couldn't explain any of this ridiculousness to Summer, nor could I tell him about my true identity. Doing so would only shatter his worldview. So instead, I changed the subject. Summer, I'll be leaving in a few days. I'm going home, I said softly. He froze for a moment, a little puzzled. Home? Back to the orphanage? I looked into the distance and replied quietly, maybe calling it home isn't exactly accurate. I'm going back to the place where I grew up. It had been 5 years since I left. Lowering my gaze, I handed him the bag I was carrying. By the way, before I leave, I'm giving you all the engraved carvings I've collected. Happy? I knew he had been eyeing them for a long time. Summer stared at me without saying a word, his eyes gradually welling up with tears. He knew very well how much I cherished those carvings. He hugged me tightly. Leah, he choked out, will you be happy when you go home? I thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, I will. There, even though I was an orphan, I had friends just as kind and lovable as him. There, I was still attending college, studying a major I truly loved. There, I could still enjoy all my favorite foods. I really miss home, I said, my heart twisting painfully as I spoke. Summer, I'll always miss you, I whispered. His tears soaked my shoulder. Goodbyes were always filled with sadness. After saying farewell to several close friends, people I had spent years with, I knew I at least owed them proper goodbyes before leaving. On the 3rd day of my stay at the hotel, Ethan Johnson called me. He said he had found a suitable place for Joanna Manning and that I could move back into the villa. I was a little surprised by this, but I no longer needed it. Without answering, I simply hung up the phone. There were only 2 days left before I could return home. Whether I went back to that villa or not no longer mattered. What I didn't expect, however, was that Ethan would track me down to the hotel I was staying at. The front desk called my room, informing me that a gentleman was waiting for me in the lobby. Before I even processed who it could be, I went downstairs and froze when I saw Ethan sitting on the couch in the lobby. Instinctively, I turned around to leave. But Ethan noticed and quickly got up to chase after me. He reached out and grabbed my arm. "Leah, I called you yesterday and told you to move back. Why are you still staying at a hotel?" I shook his hand off and said with a mocking smile, "I was afraid you'd call the police and accuse me of trespassing." He sighed. "I said some things I shouldn't have the other day. I'm sorry. Please stop being so unreasonable. Manning has already moved out. You can go back now. I swear I won't kick you out again." I looked up at him and asked, "In your eyes, am I just some plaything you can summon and discard at will?" His face stiffened. He stammered, "How? How could you think of me like that?" I gave a cold laugh. "Maybe because in the past few years I treated you too well, good enough for you to believe you could control me however you pleased. Maybe it was just my imagination," but Ethan's eyes were filled with a deep sorrow. I let out a heavy sigh. "Ethan Johnson, get lost," I said. "Don't ruin my mood for these last 2 days, and don't worry, I'll be at your engagement party with Joanna Manning tomorrow." I turned and walked toward the elevators, but he chased after me again, grabbing my wrist hard. "Leah," his voice was hoarse. I yanked my hand free fiercely. "Don't you dare fucking touch me," I shouted. "You make me sick." The burning emotions in his eyes gradually faded. After a long silence, he let out a light sneer and laughed bitterly. "Leah, you're no saint either. Don't think I don't know your true intentions." I turned back, furious. What intentions could I possibly have? He laughed coldly again. "You want me to spell it out? Your system. Your mission. Do you want me to be even more specific?" I stared at him in shock, my teeth chattering slightly. He knew everything. Ethan raised his hand, trying to touch my face. I quickly turned my head, avoiding him. His hand froze in midair before he pulled it back, his face twisted with contempt. "Weren't you the one who used to follow me around like a dog, and now you're pretending to be aloof?" He sneered even more viciously. "I really want to see what happens to you after your mission fails." Fury rose violently inside me, filling my chest. Ethan's next words were like a dagger. "Leah," he said, "even if Manning hadn't shown up that day, I still wouldn't have gone through with the wedding." In the reflection of his cold, gleaming eyes, I saw myself trembling all over. "This is the price you pay for deceiving me," he said with a cruel smile. Smack. Without thinking, I slapped him hard across the face. His eyes, now bloodshot, glared back at me. In the end, I brushed my sleeve and walked away. On the final day before I left this world, I felt strangely exhilarated. I kept thinking back to the outfit I wore when I first arrived here. Now, remembering it sent chills down my spine. Since I wouldn't be able to bring anything from this world with me, if I had lost those clothes, would I have been thrown back into the original world completely naked? I took a cab to the address Joanna Manning had sent me. Honestly, I hadn't planned on going. But last night, Joanna had specifically sent me an electronic invitation. After some thought, I decided to show up anyway. Their engagement party was held at a private, romantic estate, surrounded by breathtaking fields of roses. It was warm and sweet, the perfect fairy tale setting. I found a seat toward the back, trying to stay low profile, but several of Ethan Johnson's friends still noticed me. They kept sneaking gossiping glances at me, clearly expecting a good show. I sat there calmly, letting them stare as much as they wanted. The engagement ceremony was quite grand. To be honest, it felt more like a press conference for Joanna Manning's return to the entertainment world, rather than an engagement party. Photographers and reporters with long-lens cameras completely surrounded Joanna and Ethan. Joanna smiled gracefully, answering the reporters' questions one by one. I saw the look in Ethan's eyes when he gazed at Joanna. It was full of deep affection. But my heart felt no waves at all. The slap I had given him yesterday had severed all 5 years of feelings between us. After disappearing for nearly 5 days, the system finally reappeared. Its voice, already mechanical, sounded even colder now. "Host, are you ready? Today is your last day in this world." "Thank you," I said softly. The system paused, seemingly stunned. "What?" I smiled. "No matter what, I should thank you. Without you, I probably would have already died from ALS." The system seemed awkward after hearing my thanks. It stuttered. No need to thank me. You completed your task. I also received rewards and even got a system upgrade." It paused for a moment. "Anyway, I hope you meet a good host in the future. After we part ways, we probably won't see each other again." The system fell silent for a while. "Goodbye, host. I wish you a bright future in your original world. In 1 hour, the disengagement process will begin. There may be a sense of weightlessness and dizziness during the transition." I nodded without saying anything else. Meanwhile, the ceremony on stage had entered the proposal segment. Ethan knelt down, pulling out a ring. Just as he was about to slip the ring onto Joanna Manning's finger, a disheveled man suddenly barged into the scene. "Joanna Manning," he shouted, "if you dare to let the child in your belly acknowledge this man as the father, I'll kill myself right here." The male lead had appeared. Just like Ethan Johnson had done at that wedding, Joanna trembled all over, staring at the man drenched in sweat. Moments later, she ripped off the ring Ethan had just placed on her finger and sprinted toward the disheveled man, throwing herself into his arms. The two of them clung to each other, crying uncontrollably, then left hand in hand, leaving behind a stunned Ethan Johnson and a crowd of bewildered reporters staring at each other in disbelief. The system let out a harsh beep and muttered a curse. "If I ever take on another task involving a love triangle soap opera like this, I'll call myself a dog," it grumbled. An ear-piercing warning sounded in my head. The sensation of dizziness and weightlessness surged through me. The system suddenly came back to its senses, flustered. "Host, the disengagement time is almost here. 3 minutes until the disengagement procedure begins. Please step into the light ring." A beam of white light appeared before me. I stepped into it without hesitation. The disengagement channel activated. 1 minute until full disengagement, the system prompted. The commotion around me quickly drew attention. Some reporters had already raised their cameras in confusion. Even Ethan Johnson turned and looked toward me. When he saw me slowly merging with the white light, his face drained of color, and he sprinted over. "Leah, what are you doing?" he shouted. I waved at him lightly, smiling. "Ethan Johnson," I called out. "I told you, I'm going home. Goodbye." He froze in place, then lunged toward the white light. But the moment he touched it, it bounced him back violently, as if hitting an invisible barrier. He screamed out in terror, "This is the punishment for failing your mission." No one answered him. As he watched my figure grow blurrier and blurrier, he became increasingly frantic, shouting into the air, "System, are you there? Listen, Leah didn't fail her mission. I love her. I really, really love her. Please stop the punishment program." The system responded with a snort of disdain. "Don't make me laugh. What did you think her mission was, to make you fall in love with her?" Ethan Johnson stood frozen in place, stunned. "Wasn't it?" he asked hoarsely. "I was her target, wasn't I?" The system's voice was dripping with mockery. "Who told you that you were her target? She was simply a task performer. Her mission didn't involve seducing anyone. All she needed to do was complete her assigned objectives. Now that her tasks are finished, she can return home." The system paused briefly, then added, "Actually, she had originally intended to stay. If you hadn't abandoned her at the wedding, she would have stayed. But now, she has chosen to leave with all her accumulated rewards. And everything you gain through her help, you're going to lose it all." The system continued speaking, but I could no longer hear it clearly. All sounds gradually faded from my mind. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself lying in my college dorm room bed. My roommate was nudging me. "Leah, hurry up, or you'll be late for morning class." Ethan Johnson's side story. I watched helplessly as Leah disappeared before my eyes. At that moment, the pain in my heart was so intense I could hardly breathe. But there was no time to dwell in sadness. The hospital called. My mother's condition had worsened. She had been moved into the ICU. Without a matching heart soon, she wouldn't survive another 3 months. but I distinctly remembered Leah telling me that she had already secured a matching heart for my mother. It was supposed to be airlifted here within 18 hours. I had assumed everything had been arranged, so how could this be happening? I wanted to find Leah, to ask her what went wrong. I dialed her number over and over again, and only after dozens of calls did I finally realize she didn't belong to this world anymore. I would never be able to find her again. My knees buckled, and I collapsed to the ground. That night, lying in bed, I thought carefully about everything from the past 5 years. 5 years ago, after my family went bankrupt, I was hounded by debt collectors everywhere. Friends and classmates avoided me like the plague. Even Joanna Manning was no exception. When I finally gathered the courage to ask her to lend me money to pay my mother's hospital bills, she had refused without hesitation. She said that in situations like mine, one had to rely on oneself, not others. She said she believed I could get through it. After that, whenever I messaged her, she rarely replied. I was heartbroken and disappointed. I knew that from that moment on, I had completely lost my dignity in front of her. We had once been praised as a perfect match, but now I wasn't even worthy of standing beside her. That thought tormented me day after day. At my lowest point, I wanted to end my life. And it was at that moment that Leah appeared, like a tiny sun, bringing warmth into my world. She lived in the rental across from mine. Every morning she would knock on my door and ask, "Want to go jogging together?" I thought she was strange, but when I saw her bright, smiling face, I couldn't bring myself to say no. Exercise slowly helped me recover physically. The negative emotions gradually loosened their grip on me. She worked desperately to earn money for my treatments. She supervised me taking my medications, accompanied me to regular checkups. At the same time, she also cared for my sick mother. I didn't understand. Why would someone who was basically a stranger dedicate herself to me so completely, without asking for anything in return? Until one day, I overheard her talking to something invisible, something called the system. From their conversation, I pieced it together. I must have been Leah's mission target. I can't even describe the feelings that moment stirred inside me. After over 2 years of being together, I had already come to think of Leah as the most important person in my life, second only to my mother. I had even fallen in love with her. But to her, I was just a mission. That was when the seeds of revenge quietly sprouted in my heart. Over the 3 years we dated, I would often wake up in the middle of the night from nightmares, terrified she would disappear once her mission ended. But she treated me so well. My friends all said she was beautiful, kind, and sensible, never unreasonable or dramatic. But why? Why was she never unreasonable with me? It was all just to complete a mission. That was why, on the day of the wedding, I had planned to ditch him at the altar. Wasn't he only doing all of this for his mission? Then I would make sure he failed. So when Joanna Manning appeared at the wedding in a bridal gown, I didn't hesitate at all. I chose her. I grabbed her hand and walked out of the wedding without a second thought. It wasn't until we were already in the car that I realized I had left Leah Carter behind. I wondered how miserable she must have looked. But I convinced myself she had been the one to deceive me first. Joanna didn't want to stay in a hotel. Her return had already made such a splash online that she asked me if I had a more discreet place where she could stay temporarily. Without thinking, I took her to the villa I had bought for Leah. Even now, I don't understand why I did it. I had plenty of properties to choose from. That day, I originally intended to discuss with Leah about moving out for a few days. After all, she was just an ordinary person. No one would pay attention to her. But she refused. And somehow, I said a bunch of hurtful things I shouldn't have. Leah left with a small suitcase. Before leaving, she flushed the ring I had given her down the toilet. Watching her frail figure disappear from my sight, I slapped myself hard across the face. When I returned to my room, I overheard Joanna making a phone call. She was crying. "You're allowed to find other women, but I'm not allowed to get engaged to another man? Don't control me." She argued and sobbed for a long time. I stood outside her door, frozen, listening. The last thing she said echoed in my mind for a long time. "Don't think that just because I love you, you can do whatever you want. I have plenty of men willing to worship me. If I wanted, I could marry one of them tomorrow." Yeah, to Joanna Manning, I was nothing but another lovesick fool. The next day, I sat Joanna down and confessed. I told her that the person I truly loved was Leah, and that I couldn't go through with the engagement. She smiled lightly and said it didn't matter. She never intended to marry me anyway. She just needed a public excuse to return to the entertainment industry. She told me she had invited many reporters to the engagement ceremony. As long as I played along until the show was over, I could then go find Leah and explain everything. I hesitated for a long time but eventually agreed. That night, Joanna moved out of the villa. I called Leah, hoping she would come back. But she hung up on me, without a word. I used my connections to find out which hotel she was staying at, but when she saw me downstairs, she turned and fled like she was avoiding the plague. We had a terrible argument. In a moment of rage, I blurted out what I knew about her system. She looked at me in disbelief, her eyes full of terror. At that moment, I thought I had finally figured it out. I was Leah's mission target. Maybe that realization embarrassed her, and that was why she slapped me hard across the face. But I didn't care. Knowing for sure that I was her mission target somehow gave me peace. It meant she had no choice. She had to stay with me, even if only for the mission. I thought I wouldn't lose her. But once again, I was completely, utterly wrong. Leah left, without hesitation. I watched as she merged with the white light and disappeared completely from my world. And I could do nothing. The day after she left, my body began to suffer sharp, unbearable pain. My left hand suddenly lost all strength. I couldn't even hold my phone. After thinking about it for a long time, I remembered 5 years ago when I had attempted suicide twice. One time, I had damaged my liver and kidneys. The other time, I had severed nerves in my left hand. I had always thought my body had miraculously recovered. Now I realized it was Leah who had used her system rewards to heal me. 2 weeks after Leah's departure, my company's stock plummeted overnight. Our core product's formula was somehow leaked to the email inboxes of over a dozen competitors. Of course, that formula had been Leah's gift to me. It was supposed to have been used for the investment she had promised to Joanna's film crew. Now, I had nothing left. And like 5 years ago, she was slowly disappearing from my life again. Meanwhile, Joanna Manning was creating CP, couple pairings, with another man online, their names dominating the trending topics for days. Suddenly, I was overwhelmed with the urge to destroy her. I made a PowerPoint presentation and bought a black market phone number to anonymously post it online. In the PPT, I exposed Joanna's father's history of laundering money for criminal organizations, her mother's corruption and bribery while holding office back home, as well as Joanna's bullying of new actors and her late-night visits to male actors and directors' rooms. The internet exploded. More and more newcomers came forward with evidence, and Joanna's career collapsed overnight. 2 years later, my company, burdened with an irreparable financial crisis, was forced to declare bankruptcy. After finishing the bankruptcy liquidation, I actually felt relieved, like a heavy weight had been lifted off my chest. I used all my remaining connections to contact the system, begging it to send me to Leah's world so I could find her. The system cruelly rejected me. It said my purpose in this world was to serve as Joanna Manning's loyal dog, and it would never allow me to leave. I fell into endless despair. My body gradually returned to its state from before Leah had entered my life. I went to the hospital and was diagnosed with severe depression. But now, I would never again meet the girl who had once filled her entire world with me. Later, Joanna announced her marriage to that man. I went to the wedding. Watching her in her white wedding dress, I was reminded of the day Leah and I were supposed to get married. If only Joanna hadn't shown up that day, maybe Leah and I would have lived happily together. Mad with grief, I disrupted the wedding. I pushed Joanna, causing her to crash into the edge of the stage. Blood quickly soaked through the hem of her white wedding gown. She had miscarried. They said she had already lost one child 2 years ago while trying to further her career, and now she lost her twin babies too. When I saw people rushing toward me with knives, I suddenly remembered what the system had once said about my ending. And maybe this was for the best. Maybe this was what I deserved. If there's a next life, I hope I'll learn to truly cherish the person in front of me.